Greetings, everyone. Bless up to my lovely subscriber who shared this beautiful backdrop with me. Thank you so much. I hope this day finds you at peace and there is love and joy and harmony in your household and in your heart. I want to talk about generational curse or curses again. Because if you don't identify it, you cannot fix it. Okay? And I'm not just going to speak in general, I'm going to speak about my own personal life and seeing signs that clearly show a curse upon the lineage of my mother and her mother and her mother. And when you recognize it, you have to take steps to change it because it's from one generation to the next and it passes down. My mother didn't have a great relationship with her mother. In fact, she gave birth to one of her child, which is my sister, and my sister never saw my mother until she was 13 years old because she was staying with her mother. She left that baby with her mother and she never went back to see her kid for 13 years. And she lived right there in Jamaica. And her mother before her had the same thing. And when I was raising my children, that was one of the things that I was saying. I don't want to be like my mother. And I don't want my relationship like my mother with myself to be with my children. And I think when I was raising my kids, sometimes I wasn't as stern as I should have been because I just didn't want to be any tension. And that didn't really stop me from having the greatest struggles with my first child. Just that fear of, you see, when you fear something, you really draw it to you. But when there's a generational curse upon your life, you clearly see it and you can try to fight it, but it can't be fought in the physical. It has to be done spiritually. Okay, pause. A young lady told me that she went to Jamaica with her family for a funeral. And while the whole family congregated in the house and everybody seeing each other coming from the States, coming from England, family members haven't seen each other for years. So, you know what it's like. They're catching up. And so she took herself away from the crowd and went to lay down in the bedroom. And her brother followed her in the room. And she says while she was in the room, her brother was saying to her older brother, by this she would have been like 17 or so. And her brother would be way up in his 20s, maybe 30. And her brother started asking her for, you know what? Her brother, who she had the same mother and the same father with. And he started holding her down. And she said she fought and she got away. And she went to her mom. And she took her mom aside and she said, this is what my brother is trying to do to me. And she went in the room where the boy was holding her down with her mother, hoping that the mother would confront him about what he had done. She's expecting her mom to be outraged. And the mom says, what's the problem? What's the big deal? You're going to disgrace the family? Huh? It's just a little something. Why if you give a little brother a little something, what's the problem? Turns out that her mother was also molested by her own family members. And when she started to investigate, that stuff was happening from one generation to the next. And if you go way back, you have to search now to say, where did this start? You have situations where the man's father abandoned his mom and they have to be in a community going from house to beg. And the man grows up and he does the same thing to his own offsprings. Generational curse. You got situation where persons from every family member that they can look back, they've always been poor. None of them graduated from school. That's like a curse. Everybody drop out of school. When I lived in Spanish Town, most of the people that lived in the community where I lived, they all dropped out of school by the time they were in grade 10. except for one guy that was going to Kingston College. They all dropped out. Generational curse. You know, a household where you see 4 generations in that household, you know, grandmother, great grandmother, and grandmother, and mother, and now grandchild. And, you know, all these women had all these children and no father. And they live in a very small place, and all these children and these people packed in a small room. Now, that's not just generational curse. That's also, you know, choices that we make. But when you look at the behavior, that's where the generational curse comes from. And so we can point it out. All these different examples I've spent the last 5 minutes or so giving you. How is it we identify then once we see it? Because you're like, no, something is off. Something isn't right with this picture. How do you break it? You see, you have to first recognize it, identify for what it is, and now that you know what it is, how do you break this yoke? Because for some persons, it's like a millstone around their neck. Another example I'm going to give you is of a woman that I met when I was in university. You would think that somebody who was in academic settings would know better. And I remember her telling me that when she had her first period, her mom beat her and said that she did something wrong. And she told me when her daughter at 12 years old, starting having her menses, she said she beat her. And I said, why would you do that? She says, I don't know. I just thought maybe she might be fooling around with a boy. Generational curse. And once we recognize what these generational curses are in our life and we take steps to remove it, there is a way. There's an opportunity. Sometimes that generational curse requires you to remove yourself from relatives and family because this spirit that is attached to them, they're literally having devil, dark spirits or energy around them. Strike devil. Just say energy. Attached to these ones. And when you're in their presence, as long as you're in their midst, nothing good come of your life. You also have friends who are attached with some kind of generational curse. When they're around you, nothing good happens with you or for you. You're in a relationship, and as long as you're in that relationship, nothing is working out. The man's salt, the woman's salt. Listen, if you're Jamaican, you know what they mean when they say you're salt. Just negative vibration, negative energy. You know, you have sometimes somebody, you know, the water, money falls through their hands like water. They can't keep any money in their hands or in their pocket or whatever in their account. There's always something. And then when you got salt people, when you got people packed with the generational curse of poverty upon them and they borrow your money, it's transferred to you. I took money out of my account and gave to some people. And oh my goodness, let me tell you, it was a disaster after another. Now, I don't really like letting people touch my money. I like to, you know, put it in their account, you know, and help them pay the hospital bill or pay whatever it is that I have to pay. Because I'm very wary about people touching my money, to be honest, because they're not doing it on purpose, but some of them are cursed. The generational curse that is upon them of poverty follows them everywhere. So I'm going to say to you that you need to recognize the things in your life that are not working and do your traces and see where it's coming from. Sometimes you're involved with a man, and because he went into the wrong garden, the curses that are upon her lineage falls on you because he's now entering and transferring that energy to you. These things sound like foolishness to a lot of people, but those of you who can relate and agree, you know, in comment section, let me hear from you. Do you look at your life? Do you examine your life in any way and say to yourself, no, something isn't wrong, isn't right. Something is not right. Something isn't right. For years, I saw some patterns in my life. And after I finally acknowledged it for what it was, to say it was a generational curse, And I had to go and take steps to align myself with positive energy and work towards, that will change my situation. To this day, I still have struggles. I still recognize some generational curses in my own family. And, I've prayed about it. And, I used to feel depressed about it. But I realized that doesn't change anything. It doesn't help. And so what I did, I remember going into a 3-day fast. No water, no food, nothing. And I handed it over to the Creator. And every so often, when it pops up its head and you see it, you want to go back and take it back. But I can't. I have to let it go. And I have to surrender it to the Most High. And I have to do my part, staying in nature, staying close to the center, to not bring that back to me. Take care. Let me hear from you in the comment section. Stay blessed, everyone.